subscribe. Welcome to Ghost Wolf Live. So, the reason I'm doing tonight's show, which is called Ghosts of Cults, is because, honestly, I watch too much TV. I know that sounds funny, but bear with me for a second. Alright, so, one of my favorite shows that I wish had gone on a lot longer, actually, was Leah Remini's Scientology in the Aftermath, which was only 3 seasons long. And they stopped making it, I think, because they felt like they were looking at being too busy with court cases and stuff of that nature. That's just my assumption. Anyways, it got me thinking about cults, because, look, let's be honest, Scientology is a cult, okay? I'm not trying to badmouth anybody's spiritual or religious beliefs. Whatever you believe is whatever you believe. However, when it is a belief system, if you will, that is set up to systematically destroy the people without as well as the people within, both spiritually, mentally, and physically, I don't know of another name for it other than a cult. There's definitely other organizations that belong to this. One that springs to mind, honestly, is West Memphis Baptist Church, because their behavior is very cult-like. But I think the main one that stands out is Scientology, because they've taken it to such a degree, such a level, that it's next level, really. Like, I don't think there's ever been another cult quite like it, to be honest, or at least not one that's been as successful. Now I'm not tongue-tied. Anyways, a lot of things are going on with the Church of Scientology, which I believe, personally, going by things that I hear, is on big decline. And no small part to Scientology in the Aftermath and their new podcast, Scientology Fair Game, as well as other podcasts and blogs by people like Mike Rinder and basically all these ex-Scientologists that you've probably seen. Ron Miscavige has his own podcast and blog, and all this stuff. So, yeah, I believe they're declining, or about to. Really bad. Anyways, that's just going by things I've heard, including the possibility that one aspect of that, if you want to call it church, at least, is going to be kind of legally having its ass handed to them, and that would be OSA, which is the dirty tricks department, the ones that hire the PIs and all that stuff. Through a friend of mine that I can't say his name or what he does, I'll just say that he works in the government, told me that there's a possibility they may be getting labeled as domestic terrorists for all the fear tactics that they commit on people, which would not be good for them. It would basically guarantee that they would lose tax-exempt status if that were true. I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying what I heard. Anyways, not really the important part of tonight's show. Is important, of course, but not what tonight's show's about. So it got me thinking. I've had the pleasure of investigating over the years a few spots that were related to different cults throughout the years. And one thing I've noticed, and if anybody out there has any different experiences on this, I would love to hear from you. But this is just my personal experiences. I have noticed throughout the years that they all seem to have one thing in common, and that is an abundance of spirits that are kind of trapped. And I don't mean that like how everybody throws around the term trapped spirits. Because honestly, most spirits are here because they choose to be. What I mean by them being trapped is because they were, these people were basically brainwashed. When they were alive, they are pretty much in the same state now. So they're very confused a lot of the time. And they're very much still kind of in that mindset. So they don't really understand or know what's going on. And so they are kind of trapped, but almost like they're trapped in their own minds, if that makes sense. So one of the places that I kind of got to investigate, and I'm throwing the word kind of in there because I will admit that it wasn't exactly legal what I did. I went to the Mojave Desert one time. This is years ago. And a certain spot in the Mojave Desert that was the compound site, campsite, whatever you want to call it, of the Manson family. And I pretty much immediately encountered two different spirits that were, well, one was there because I'm fairly certain he doesn't even know that he's deceased. Because the way he acts is like he's still in that era. He's still very much alive. But he's not a, what we would call a, what's that term? Having a brain fart right now. He acts like he's an intelligent spirit. He doesn't really quite act like, why can't I think of that term? Oh my God. It's not like an image that's playing over and over. It's aware. It's very much aware that you're there. And this guy, evidently, when he was alive, was like this bulldog kind of watchdog guard of the camp. And immediately he was confronting me, basically asking me why I'm there. And, trying to discourage me from going further into the camp. And that's what I mean. He was like still in that mind frame, almost as if he he's aware of the things around him, but he's unaware that he's no longer alive. And so, in that sense, he's trapped. And the other one was this kind of younger girl. Going by her appearance, I would have to guess that she was late teens, maybe. And the only part of the property that I saw her at was evidently they had like this fire ring out there that when I went there, it was still there. Actually, there's like this fire ring of like rocks and like kind of like, I guess you'd say, smaller sized boulders in a circle, and evidently this is where they would have bonfires and stuff. And she's just dancing around it. I mean, she's aware. She'll look right at you, but once again, still in that mind frame. And I think largely the reason for this is my theory, I think that largely the reason for this is because of the mindset they were in when they died. They were very much drinking the proverbial Kool-Aid, and so they're still in that mindset. And that, more than anything, is, what, quote-unquote, has trapped them. Another one of the places that I got to investigate was a home that at one time belonged to Jim Jones. And I will tell you, I don't really get scared. Especially, I mean, not even in my regular everyday life. I'm pretty much not afraid of anything. I used to be, but I've kind of conquered my fears, I guess you could say. I mean, fear is a good thing to have, in a sense, but I just don't let it control me, if that makes sense. So, but I will tell you, in this place, it was pretty creepy. I mean, there were some creepy things going on there. A lot of, like, I don't get freaked out by shadow people because, well, as I've explained in previous shows, and I will explain again, typically, there's no difference between a shadow person and, say, like, a full-bodied apparition. It's just a different form. And they can change their form, going by what I've seen, according to, whatever they're trying to accomplish and the amount of energy they're trying to expend to do it. And I think all shadow figure is, most of the time, is like giving them the full-bodied connection, if you will, without expending quite as much energy. That's my theory, anyways. But these were different. The closest thing I can describe these as is, if you've ever seen the movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore, at the end, those shadows that came up out of the ground and were dragging the guy to hell. It's kind of what they looked like, and they were like all over this property, and there was only one ghost that I came across at this house, and it was a woman, and it was like she was scared to leave. And, seeing these shadow things around, it's understandable. But ultimately, they had no power. She could have left if she wanted to. It was simply her own fear keeping her there. But I did help her leave, and hopefully for good. But I don't know. It was only went there the one time, and once was enough. I mean, I never knew that guy when he was alive, but I heard a lot of things, and going by what I experienced there, that dude was scary. Like, for real. One place I'd love to investigate, actually, is, I forget the name of it, but it was actually in an episode of Ghost Adventures. Forget what season it was, but it was a house that used to belong to L. Ron Hubbard. And this house, I guess this is a house that he had before Scientology was Scientology. And it was in California, like L.A. area, I think. But evidently, the vibes coming off of this house were causing some disturbing things to happen. They actually captured this one guy kind of wigging out, almost as if he was being possessed, on the sidewalk. Not even on the property itself. This is out on the sidewalk. That they actually captured in that episode. And that's one place I'd actually like to investigate, because I think that house would definitely have these kind of spirits in it that are trapped by this mindset they were in when they were alive. Now, these are very, very charismatic people that have convinced these people to give up their way of life, to give up their life, to give up their future and their families even, to give up everything that they are to be molded into whatever these, quite frankly, sick fuckers desire. Because ultimately, if you look at L. Ron Hubbard, if you look at David Koresh or Jim Jones or Charles Manson or any of these cult leaders, they all have just a few things in common, regardless of whatever dogma they're pushing, and that's that they are incredibly narcissistic and they're sociopaths. Because they don't care about people or how they feel or even what they're feeling most of the time. All they care about is getting their fix. And getting their fix in this particular case is the destruction of somebody's personality, of somebody's free will, without actually destroying the person physically. Although there's cases where they've done that too, I'm sure. And that's a scary concept, right? Because what you're talking about is somebody that is so charming, so charismatic, that can convince you, maybe even if you're in kind of a susceptible state, to give up your free will, right? To give up who you are as a person, as an individual, to join a collective of other people that have done the same thing. If you see what I'm getting at, it's insane. And the scary thing is all these guys that did this stuff, L. Ron Hubbard and Koresh and Manson, and all these guys were incredibly intelligent people. And what I mean by that is I'm not saying that they weren't stupid, quote unquote. What I mean is they had high IQs. They were intelligent, well-read, most of them. Okay, they just had these wacky ideas. How can I control people? Because that's what they need. That's their fix. Like a serial killer needs to kill. That's his fix. A drug user has to do drugs because that's their fix. For whatever reason, these guys are worse than a serial killer because they're not just trying to destroy somebody's body. They're after their soul and their spirit and their mind. Okay, and when they accomplish that, what state do you think it leaves those people in? Alive or dead? And if you've watched the show, Scientology and the Aftermath, you'll see it fucks them up for years. And then applying this formula, I start to see this same kind of thing happen in other belief systems. Okay? I got to tell you, I'm not Christian. I was raised as one, basically. We attended a church called Harvest Crusade. It was an evangelical church. It is where Benny Hinn came from originally. It's where a lot of these kind of like big name evangelists came from. And looking back on it now, there's certain aspects of how a cult behaves that fit this church. Now, I'm not saying that it's a cult. I don't believe that it actually is. But there's some of the same behavior in there. Because it not so much when I was a kid, but after I left, it did really kind of turn into us versus them. And that's the one thing all of these cults have in common, is this us versus them mentality. There's always an enemy. The enemy might be different from cult to cult, but there's always going to be an enemy, a big bad that everybody within the belief system, everybody within the cult has to avoid. With Scientology, it's basically the outside world, but especially anybody that's like psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists, whatever. Anybody in the mental health field is deemed the enemy. Anybody that's like a reporter is deemed the enemy. Law enforcement is deemed the enemy. And these are smart moves on the part of LRH, because what you've done is you've turned the people in your organization, in your cult, against the very people that could help them. And help them to see how full of shit you are. And it was very much the same thing for like Manson and Jim Jones and David Koresh and the Moonies and all these other organizations. It's very much like that. It's us versus them. Here's the big enemy that you have to avoid no matter what. Because if you don't, you'll get shunned. You'll get disconnected. You'll get, whatever their term is for it. And that's the other thing they have in common. They all have that kind of like built in. That if you don't do what we say, you're going to be shunned, and no one that you care about, nobody in your family will ever talk to you. And this bad thing or that bad thing will happen to you because, you're out in the evil world now. Quote unquote. And then you think about that and you realize that if these people, when they die, are in that same state of mind, they're literally trapped in their own mind until somebody can come along and convince them to see the truth, if that's even possible, which I'm sure in some cases it's not. I would love to go to Clearwater, Florida. I really would. Well, for a couple of reasons. First off, I want to go to Clearwater, Florida. I want to stand on the sidewalk, not go into the building, not even touch the building, not touch anybody around the building, but stand on the sidewalk in front of Flag, which is the main headquarters of Scientology in Clearwater, Florida, right in front of the cameras, because I know they have surveillance cameras, and flip them the bird. And just stand there. Stand there. Because, you know what? Technically, I wouldn't be doing anything wrong. I haven't said a word, so therefore I can't be harassing anybody. And even if I did say something, I'd only be exercising my freedom of speech. Yeah, I'm flipping them the bird, but I'm also allowed the freedom of expression. And I'm in a public space because I'm on the sidewalk, which it might be right in front of their building, but they don't own it. Not the sidewalk. And I would love to just flip them the bird. Not say a word. Let them come out. Let them come out and get in my face and yell at me. Because you know what I would tell them? I'd be like, okay, you can yell whatever you want at me. I don't care. Just don't touch me. Because you touch me, you're going to pull back a nub. Seriously, I want to get in the face of Scientology. I have to tell my story now. So, I don't know if you're aware, I don't know if you have like a Scientology organization anywhere where you live, but I lived for many, many years in San Diego. And San Diego has a fairly nice-sized Scientology community there. Not anything like Clearwater, Florida, of course, but, still, and not even as good as LA, but still pretty good. And they have these signs always out in front of their buildings. Come in for a free personality test. And what that personality test is, of course, is you're being audited. If you've seen the show, you know what auditing is. They have this thing called an E-meter, and it's got these two like cylindrical metal things that you have to hold in your hands. They call them cans. And they ask you questions, and it's got like a needle on it, like an EM meter. And it's supposed to act like a lie detector, basically. Well, a friend of mine, whose name I don't want to say on the air. He was a victim of Scientology. This is a guy that I served in the military with. This is a guy who fought bravely and served his country, who got sucked in to Scientology. And as I'm sure as you can imagine, being in that situation coming home, you're not exactly mentally stable. A lot of the time, you have things like PTSD, which, of course, Scientology won't even recognize because it has to do with those things that they don't like, meaning psychiatry and psychology and whatnot. And according to them, you would be feeling these things because of crimes you've committed. So it's, of course, your fault. Which is not the thing a guy in his position needs to hear. And he stuck with it. He really believed in this bullshit. He drank the Kool-Aid. And I wasn't there. I had actually left San Diego for a while. I was living out of state for about a year. And I come back and I hear that he had killed himself by walking out onto the freeway and getting hit. So I decided that I was going to get some payback. And keep in mind, right or wrong, I wasn't in the right frame of mind at that point either. But I went in and I took that free personality test, and I fucked with them. I almost feel bad for the auditor, honestly, because I had this person who actually seemed like a nice person. Of course, who knows if that's accurate or not, but I had this person, by the end of it, convinced. Actually, I didn't even think I got to the end of it, to be honest with you. I had them convinced that I was completely psychotic, that I was going to snap at any moment and just start taking people out. I had them so convinced of this that they actually escorted me from the building. They even tried to have people follow me. Not PIs, I don't think. But, probably parishioners in the church or something. Follow me, and that didn't go their way. I physically restrained this individual that was following me and walked him back into the church and said, "I believe this belongs to you." And then I walked out and never saw anyone on my tail ever again. But I know it wasn't necessarily right, what I did, but the same time, I did feel almost like a sense of vindication, if you will. And it's nothing compared to what happened to my friend. You know, but at least it was something, because I knew, the cops would never do anything to these people. Even if they wanted to, what are they going to do? I mean, it's not like they pushed him into, physically pushed him into traffic on the freeway. But but at least it was something. No, if nothing else, I wasted their time and I scared the shit out of them. And I would love to do it again. Because, honestly, that's what I think is going to have to happen. I think it's going to have to be true. And if you look at it, it is actually true. They are kind of domestic terrorists because they are using fear and terror to achieve their own ends. And that is the dictionary definition of a terrorist. So that's what they are. They may not resort to bombs and bullets, but how many people died under the watch that could have been helped, but since they don't believe in psychology and psychiatry, and they're pushing this bullshit down their throat, oh, well, we have the answers. How many people died because of that bullshit? Yeah, they may not have bombed any building. They may not be walking around with bombs strapped to their chest, but that doesn't mean they're not terrorists. And just like every terrorist organization, the people that make up the body of that organization aren't even aware of it. And that's the truly sad thing. They are either unaware or they are so fucking much in denial. There goes my dogs. Hush! Hush! Good babies. Anyhow, that's why I wanted to do tonight's show. Because Nachi! Because there's a cost for what they do. And I think it's about time that for once they're the ones that pay it. That needs to happen. Either legally or even if not legally, more needs to be done. More court of public opinion needs to just turn on these assholes like big time. If nothing else, they can't be allowed to get one more member. They can't be allowed to have somebody give them all their money to basically fund their own murder. To fund their own destruction, because that's essentially what's going on. And it's not just Scientology, it's these other groups too, like the Moonies or whoever. Whatever the fuck you want to call them. It just has to happen, people. Please be aware and please get out. That's all the time I got for tonight, folks. So I want to thank you for tuning in. Until next time, my pack, my tribe. Peace out.